everybody, and welcome to episode 17 of the podcast. A warm welcome to any returning listeners, and a welcome to any new listeners that have joined us today. I hope you will enjoy your time with us, and we'll come back for more at some point. Thank you to everyone who has been in contact with me since I last podcasted. It's great to hear from you all, and I've been very much enjoying chatting with people on Twitter especially. So do come and say hello, don't be shy. There's been an awful lot of love for my little pointy-nosed, snorkel-faced co-host, who was reasonably vocal on the last episode. Both of the dogs are in the room at the moment, although he's lying on the couch and he's asleep with his head on a pillow, looking quite regal for a change, is our Bowser. He's usually sleeps like he's dead. You know, you get that kind of comedy cartoon, something's dead so it's on the back with their feet in the air, and that obviously means that it's dead. Well, that's what he sleeps like, with his legs kind of akimbo. He's got absolutely no style whatsoever, but at the moment he seems to be reclined on the couch with his head on a pillow like it's a shay-long, I think, pretty much. So we'll see how we get on. Obviously the more I talk, the more chance there is that he'll just start chipping in. But seeing as you all seem to like that quite a lot, then I hope you won't mind if he joins in this time. Well, since the last time that I podcasted, summer seems to have briefly arrived in the Kingdom of Fife, and then it promptly left, and I had to put the heating back on. The weather is very changeable up here, it's quite crazy. But I have been continuing in my mission to uncover all the local hidden gems, both in the fibre world and generally. Dundee is the next place, it was the next place on my list to conquer, but after a bit of a run-in with a crazy shop assistant in Marks and Spencer's of all places, I'm not entirely sure I'll be going back to the high street there. But I have been looking around the woolly offerings in Dundee, and I've made quite a kind of large bum-shaped dent in the sofa at Fluff, which whenever I see it, I always think flumps. I've got a bit of a thing about flumps at the moment. Fluff is spelt F-L-U-P-H, and it is a reasonably new yarn shop, and it's on the Blackness Road in Dundee, which is one of like the big roads that runs out from the city centre, kind of up out into the Bondi, really, to the north. And it's run by a lady called Leona, who's absolutely lovely. So after my run-in with the crazy shop assistant at Marks and Spencer's, I promptly gave up on my mission to find a suit and went back off in a huff back to Fluff, even though I spent an hour and a half in there. I went up to say hello and parked up and promptly spent an hour and a half knitting socks and chatting to Leona, and then I was like, yeah, I'm going to have to, go and try and find a suit, because that's actually what I came to town for, and if I go home without, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble. Anyway, I went home without a suit, thanks to crazy Marks and Spencer's lady, but I also went home with some yarn, so I went back to Leona's shop and said, I need to get some yarn. These new projects need some new yarn, because I'm upset now. It's crazy woman shouting at me in Marks and Spencer's for daring to ask her to do her job. And so it was all fine. Once I've been back there and had a bit of a chat with her and bought some yarn and gone home with my little screen printed bag that says Fluff on it, I was very happy. So I will review the yarn shop Fluff at some point. I do have a yarn shop review for you later in the episode, but it is one from Edinburgh, because I'm still working my way through my new yarn shop back catalogue. There's also a plan to go over to Glasgow at the end of the month and meet up with Louise Scully and Claire Devine and Karina Westerman, who actually listens to the podcast. I was just massively like, oh my god, you listen to my podcast? That's crazy. Because she's like famous. And we're going to go over and check out the new yarn shops in Glasgow, because there's a new yarn shop there called the Queen of Pearls, which opened recently, and I haven't been to see the yarn shops in Glasgow yet, so that's as good an excuse as any for me, frankly. So we're going to go over there, going to have some cake, going to go to the yarn cake, etc., check out the tea places. It's going to be quite cool. So hopefully I'll have lots and lots of yarn shop reviews for you coming up in future episodes. Other than that, My re-embracement of the Scottish culture continues at pace. Considering I'm half Scottish, I do not feel Scottish at all. In England, I feel a little bit Scottish. I feel kind of this affinity with Scottish people because I am half Scottish. My dad's Scottish. My granny was Scottish. But yeah, I'm really not Scottish at all, it would seem. It's coming into berry season here, and they grow loads and loads of fruit in Scotland. They grow delicious raspberries and lots of strawberries and things. And I found a place near the Tay Bridge that does local strawberries that are really, really red and shiny, and they smell of strawberries, unlike some of the supermarket ones, which just don't smell of anything because they're still raw. You know what I mean when you get them shipped in from abroad. Anyway, they are delicious. They're so delicious that the entire family's massively into them, and it's costing me a fortune in strawberries because they're not the cheapest. It's not like a farm shop in Lincolnshire where you actually get a good deal. It's kind of like you pay more for these ones, which is fine. I think they should get paid for their work, but equally it's costing me a fortune. So I'm gonna have to get the kids onto cheapy ones instead, I think. But they are delicious. So if you are passing the roundabout that leads to the Tay Bridge, I recommend popping in there because they're really, really nice. Really, like I said, really big and red and shiny and lovely. So I've been enjoying that. I've also, you hear these stories about battered Mars bars and things in Scotland, and it is true, you can get them. But I've not really fully appreciated the difference between English curry houses. And I've lived in a lot of places. I've been to a lot of curry houses. I used to live in Manchester. I've been to nearly every curry house on the Curry Mile. I think I'm a bit of a connoisseur when it comes to curry, and they don't do curry houses very well in this area of Fife. I'm not going to lie to you. But we decided to try the nearest one to us, which looks really dodgy and a little bit kind of, I don't know, like they might be on some kind of food hygiene programme at some point. I don't think they have been, but it just gives that general impression. And so I thought we'll try it out because some of the guys said it was good. And we noticed that in the starters menu, you can actually order haggis pakora. Yeah, haggis pakora. I didn't think that haggis and curry kind of went together, but apparently it does. But then pakora is just deep fried stuff, so it is essentially deep fried haggis, but you get it in the Indian instead. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm not gonna try that because I think it'd be a bit greasy. But if you're passing and you fancy something a little bit different, then that curry house clearly is the place to go. Sorry. Other than that, well, I've been in the biggest colossal nitty funk ever for a few months now, and if I ever had a knitting mojo, it along with Elvis, it certainly left the building. And it's been going on for a while. I'm not really sure what's caused it, but it's a big problem at the moment. It could be to do with all of the kind of ups and downs and turmoil that's going on generally in my life right now. As I mentioned on the last podcast, I'm going to be moving house again, and I quite often get emails from people saying, I don't know how you sound so calm on the podcast because like you've got these kids and these dogs and you're always moving house and it must be really stressful. I don't know how you do it. And I will just put it out there right now. All of the time when I'm not talking on the podcast, it is chaos here. I'm not one of these kind of like Zen ladies that sits around pinning stuff on Pinterest with these freshly scrubbed children and pedigree chum dogs like I've just walked out of a Bowden catalogue, an air of serenity, kind of, birds landing on my fingers or anything like that. It's like a scene from Super Nanny crossed with dog borstal. It's crazy. Most of the time I look like I've been dragged through a hedge backwards. The children are just running around screaming. The dogs are trying to eat next door's cats and then getting beaten up, and you just feel like everything's just a little bit out of control. that's what it's like most of the time. So if I sound quite calm on the podcast, that's probably because I've had several gins before recording, and I've been working myself up to this podcast, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to be frazzled mummy type, because podcasts are my escape from that whole rigmarole thing. So I try not to talk about them too much on the podcast because of that, because I like to kind of zone out from the children. And that is the only reason why I sound quite calm, because I feel like I'm kind of in a different persona. I'm acting like a different person, and not the person and the reality of my chaotic existence. So I would like you all to sit there now and think, it's fine. I don't need to feel guilty that my life isn't a Bowden catalogue, because nobody's life is a Bowden catalogue. And the mummy guilt and everything else that people pour upon you, just let it all go. Just let it all go. Just like, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to have another gin. I'm going to sit down with Jo, because she won't judge me for having another gin either. and crack on. So thank you all for saying that I sound very calm, but I promise you that is just not, what happens. But it's good that I sound a little bit less mental on the podcast. But obviously I think all of this other stuff that's going on and everything else has sort of culminated to kind of strangle my creative mojo a little bit, which has resulted in a bit of a spate of binge casting on. I think, you know, if you see people like Hollywood would have you think that the answer to your problems, if you're feeling a bit depressed, is to get a massive tub of ice cream and eat it. Well, I've been doing that, but not with ice cream, with yarn, which is good, I think, frankly. It's good for the local indie dyers anyway. And I've just been trying to cast on things, because I keep thinking that if I cast on something else, that will make me happy, and my knitting mojo will come back and it will be fine. For instance, I was in this nitty funk, and I'm just like, I'm in a funk, girls. When we went for the visit to Edinburgh, and I just didn't know what to do about it, and I thought I'll get some new yarn. So, because that's going to help, isn't it? Adding more to the collection. And I bought some lovely Fibres base. I think it was Scrumptious, actually, Scrumptious DK, and it was in teal, the colourway. It was just beautiful, gorgeous skeins that I bought from Be Inspired. And I decided that if I made a Song of the Sea Coal, which is a pattern by Louisa Spangam, I will link to it in the show notes, who is Inspiration Knits, it would all be fine, and my knitting funk would go away. And the yarn is gorgeous, it's the most beautiful colour, and the pattern is lovely. And I cast on, and I've done half of the first row, and I've not done anything else, so that's not really working. And so I cast on some more stuff, and I have counted up 10 knitting whips at the moment, 4 of which are socks, because someone said, oh, just cast on some socks. I was like, I've got 4 sets of socks on the go. I can't just keep going buying more sock needles. It's not acceptable, you know. So I'm really not feeling the love, and I would love some ideas about how to kind of reinvigorate the mojo, really, and how to kind of kickstart what I've got going on, because I'm also starting to feel now guilty about whips that I've had going on for so long. And I kind of feel like if I was telling someone else about it, I would say, just rip them all out. If you don't love them, just rip them out. Just start something else, because then the whips are gone. Therefore, the guilt is gone. And you can put the yarn back, and you can pick out something else, and you can just crack on. But I don't know whether that will work. I could certainly try it. There's a couple of things I think, you know, I might just rip that out again. But then some of them have been ripped out more than once. And then I feel guilty that I'm doing serial ripping. Can you get put in jail from the knitting police for serial ripping? Maybe? I don't know. Anyway. Some of the stuff I've got on the needles has been on the needles since I've lived in Africa. I've been back for a year. It's ridiculous. There will be a full sort of post-mortem of that in the Wippin Piccadilly section, which will be considerably longer than usual this time. But I would love to hear your thoughts on it, really. I think I sort of broke the cycle a little bit with, of all things, some Sirdar smiley stripes. I just saw it in the box, and I just thought, oh, I want that. I want to make a little V-neck pullover, you know, a little tank top for Sanimal, because he had this really cute one that came from some generic supermarket and he's grown out of it, but he looked really cute in it, so I thought, oh yeah, I'll try that. And it was working really, really well, and knitting up really fast. I was like, yeah, it's brilliant. And I've got to the point where I'm right near the end. I just need to like attach the shoulders together and then pick up all the stitches for the neck, and then just knit that, and then knit around the arms and sew down the insides. It's done, and it's just been thrown there. So yeah, I'm not really sure what to do about that. So anyway, yarn shop day comes, and we went to Edinburgh. I went to meet up with Claire Devine of Yarn and Pointy Sticks to do a bit of knitting world domination, and I also wanted to go past Kathy's knits because Isolde Teague was going to be there, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go kind of say hello, you know, be a bit of a fangirl, as you do. And so we went to Kathy's, and I wanted to have a longer look around at Kathy's anyway, because the last time we went I didn't get enough time to look at everything so I could like write a review on it. And so we sat there and we're looking through the books and everything, and then Isolde comes out and she's like talking to some other people, and we both decided to buy a copy of Little Red in the City and get it signed. So we're chatting away to Isolde, and some I don't know what I was thinking, but something sparked in my brain, and before I knew it, I was like in confession with Isolde Teague, telling her about how I was in this knitting funk, and I was actually my knitting project in my bag was Serdar Smiley Stripes, and I was just like, I'm in Kathy's Knits, which is like an emporium of British yarn and ethnic and indie loveliness, and I'm confessing to Isolde Teague that I'm knitting with Serdar Smiley Stripes. Like, it's alright. And I mean, it is alright, but it's just, you know what, you want to be like the cool person. It's like, yeah, I'm knitting with this, you know, really kind of interesting yarn from some kind of exotic island in Micronesia, but I'm not. I'm knitting with Serdar's finest. And she was actually really funny about it. You know, it was, I think, she must meet a lot of people, and I think we were kind of sort of on the more normal end of the spectrum, if that's even possible. But we were talking that we're then going to go around the corner to the pub and start planning world domination, at which point Isolde's ears pricked up massively, and I think she was fairly up for coming to the pub with us to find out what we were plotting, but we didn't actually invite her, which is a bit rude, but, you know. Anyway, I will do the full post-mortem for that in Wippin Piccadilly, and talk a bit more about those patterns and what's good and what's not so good about them. But like I said, any tips that anyone has for breaking free of the funk, which is turning to the funk of 40,000 years, I'm not going to lie, I would really appreciate. I think a lot of people are going through this at the moment. I've heard other podcasters talk about it, and I don't know if some of it might be like a seasonal thing with it's summer, and you know, people don't go in yarn shops so much, trade slows down for yarn shops at this time of year, etc. But yeah, tips would be much appreciated. Otherwise, I've been attempting to kind of take a bit of a step back from everything and just chill out and enjoy time a little bit more, which is, if you've heard me talking about the African approach, I'm going to take the African approach. I heartily recommend taking the African approach to things, but not to your whipping problems, your knitting funk problems, because otherwise you'd never get anything done. But the African approach pretty much involves just leaving it all, just be like, yeah, whatever, what comes will come, and just going to sleep under a tree in your front garden for 3 hours during the day. That's the African approach. So if it's all getting a bit much, I recommend trying that, and it just gives you a bit of a chance to kind of take stock and reevaluate and let you see opportunities that are there but you can't see because you're too busy flailing your arms around and trying to make things happen, which I do quite a lot. But hey, there we go. I've realised I've been banging on a little bit for the introduction, so what we will do is go on to the yarn shop review. Just realised that last section was pretty much a 20-minute stream of consciousness. I hope you managed to keep up with some of it. I think that's part of the problem when you don't podcast for a little while, as it all sort of comes out in one big kind of blurting mess. But hey, there we go. The yarn shop review that I have for you this time then is of Be Inspired Fibres, which is a yarn shop in Marchmont in Edinburgh, and it is run by May, who is absolutely lovely. And it's, again, I think it's a reasonably new yarn shop, and it's one of the yarn shops that's involved with the Edinburgh yarn crawl that I mentioned last time I podcasted. That will be taking place on the 21st of June, and details for that can be found via the Ginger Twist Studios blog, and I will link to that in the show notes. We went to visit Be Inspired Fibres as part of our little kind of TGS yarn crawl that we did in Edinburgh back in April, and it's the first time I've ever been there. We got on the bus from town to get there. I think you can walk, but it's about a 20-25 minute walk from town. But it's a lovely kind of area with a big kind of green and stuff. We were there on a Saturday afternoon, and it was just us in the shop when we got there. And what I liked about it was a lot of yarn shops, no matter where you go, seem to stock the same or very, very similar stuff, and that was not the case with Be Inspired Fibres. There were a lot of brands there that I've not seen in other shops. I mean, there were some that you do see kind of everywhere, but there were also a lot of things that you don't see in other shops, and I quite like that because it just gives you a bit more opportunity to be inspired, but to get inspiration from new yarns and different ways of looking at things, different samples that you see because they're carrying different yarns, for instance, than you will normally see in other places. She has a lot of different brands. She had a lot of Lotus yarns, which is a Chinese brand, and she also had a lot of Japanese knitting books as well, quite a large collection of that. I know quite a few people are into Japanese knitting books, and she has loads in stock. She also had ITO Yarns, which is again a Japanese company that does yarn, and in a lot of different sort of unusual sort of materials, really. Some of the yarns have got like stainless steel in them, and wool and silk and things. She had a good selection of notions from Chowgu, and I think Brittany was the other brand. She also had some really cool steel sort of, it's like on a little cone. It's by Habu, and you knit the steel yarn, or the kind of like cotton, I suppose, in with your knitting, and it can add structure and a bit of a different kind of behaviour of the material once you've knit with it. You can also just knit it on its own, and it becomes a really kind of structural, textured piece too. Claire did pick some of that up to do a bit of experimentation with it. I've not had a chance to ask her how she went on with that, but there is a plan for her to come and guest on the podcast at some point soon, so I will make sure that when she does, we'll cover that and what she thinks of that as a material for knitting. She also had some cascades. She had Malabrigo and fibre spates, as I mentioned, because I picked up some of the fibre spates. There was some Soku in there, and she also had Navia, which is a Faroese wool. And I've not had a chance to try it yet. It's Faroese wool, but they blend it with Shetland wool and some Australian wool, and it did feel really, really nice. She also had some Navia sock yarn in, and I do think that's something I want to try in the future, definitely. Service-wise, she was absolutely lovely. She spent ages chatting to us. It was just like going to kind of knit group and chatting to a friend. She was very, very friendly, very helpful, and I thought the name for the shop is very apt, because I definitely came out with lots and lots of new ideas, which doesn't always happen when you go into a yarn shop, no matter how nice it is. It doesn't always have that effect, but Be Inspired definitely does. So I would say if you are in the area, I would definitely I'd put that on your list of places to visit, purely because it is so lovely. Great service, and the range of stuff you find in there is really good for kind of inspiring you and giving you some ideas. So that was my review of Be Inspired Fibres, which is in Marchmont in Edinburgh, and I will link to their website, etc., on the show notes. So on to Wippin Piccadilly. Wow, yeah. I think I'm going to have to streamline this down a little bit after talking for so long in the intro, randomly. I think we might need to cut it down a little bit. So what I will do is start with my more successful works in progress. I don't think I have anything finished to tell you about. And then what I might do is add a kind of aspirational project of what I would like to kind of get into next once I've cleared down some whips at the end. So the first whip that's going reasonably well is just a pair of ordinary vanilla socks, but I am trying out for the first time the Afterthought heel, and I'm also trying out knitting magic loop because I am die-hard DPN girl. I really like using DPNs. I never tried any other methods. I started using DPNs and it worked and I liked it, so I stuck with it. But I actually really like magic loop now I've tried it. I saw Claire Devine doing it with on the yarn shop visits that I talked about earlier in Edinburgh, and she was knitting a skein of Mind the Gap sock yarn, which, if you don't know about it, is by Trailing Clouds of Glory, who's an indie dyer, and it is self-striping sock yarn based on the colours in the map of the London Underground. All the different lines are all represented in the colours, so it's pretty funky. And she was knitting away on that. I since did procure a skein of it, I'm not going to lie to you, and it just looked dead easy. She just like rattling through it, and I'm suppose when you're a sock supremo and you've written a book on socks, you probably can just rattle through it, but it just looks a little bit less dangerous for travel knitting, because if you lose one DPN, you're kind of screwed. You can't really lose your needles off your magic loop, so, and it's a bit less dangerous in terms of like snapping needles, etc., if they're in your handbag. So I thought I would give that a try. I am knitting up a skein of sock yarn from the latest quarter of the TGS Club, which I can't tell you about yet because some people haven't received the yarn yet, because it was only posted last week. So I will tell you about the yarn next time, but it's the first time of trying magic loop, and it's going to be my first Afterthought heel, because Afterthought heel lends itself to the patterning on the yarn that I'm using. I would definitely say that magic loop is going to be featuring more in my future. Once I got the hang of it, I kept getting the working yarn tangled with the cable at first, and putting it on, instead of putting it over the top of the needle when I went underneath to start knitting along the next line, I was putting it underneath instead. So I was doing like an inadvertent yarn over almost, but I think I noticed that and then fixed it, and it's been really good since. I'm about to start doing the toe on that, and then obviously I will unpick the heel and do the Afterthought heel. Or what I might do is I might knit the whole of the other one and then do both the heels together, and then it's done. Then I'm definitely finding that in the projects that I'm doing, if I'm just motoring along, just doing stocking out, I'm just doing something dead easy, I'm hammering through it. It's when I've got to do stuff that involves fiddling around that the projects come to a crashing halt. And at least 2 pairs of socks that I've got that are whips are only whips and not progressing because I'm at the point where I've got to do something else. I'm not sure if that's another knitting disease, that like fear of complicated-itis, perhaps. But because you're just knitting the whole tube and then just doing the decrease for the toe at the end, I don't mind the decrease. It's the fiddling around picking stuff up that I can't be bothered with at the moment. So I will. I'll put a picture of that up once I can kind of start showing the yarns more. But if you've never tried magic loop before, I would definitely recommend it if you're a DPN girl or boy. It's just a different way of doing it, and I do think it is a bit easier. And like I said, hazard-wise, it seems to be a bit safer than using DPNs all the time. Other socks I've got going on are still the Ribble Muster socks. I'm at the point where I've knitted the heel flap and I need to start picking up all the stitches for the gusset, and it's just not happening. That's been knit in a trial club yarn from a Golden Skein, which was a Nurturing Fibres dye. And the yarn's beautiful and the pattern's coming out really nice. It's stockinette, but it's got every 8 stitches it's got a travelling kind of slip stitch that goes around, so it kind of swirls around. You can't actually get the pattern on Ravelry anymore. I'm not sure what's happened with it, but you can't now download the pattern. I don't know if people were asking her for help and she was just like, I just wrote the pattern down, don't ask me for help or what, but you can't get it anymore. Luckily I've already printed it off, so I'm fine. There are some similar ones that you can get, but you can't get that anymore. Then I've got a pair of monkey socks that I'm doing on DPNs, which I cast on since the last podcast, I think, at the encouragement mostly of Nick from Yarns from the Plane. You know who you are. Who was just like, yeah, cast on. I was like, I really shouldn't. I've got all these whips and I really do something on that. No, cast on. There was someone else there as well. I can't remember who it was. Someone else was definitely encouraging me too. It wasn't just her, but still. So I cast those monkey socks on in, again, it was Nurturing Fibres Super Twist Sock Wool in the colourway Cape Town, which was a limited edition one, I think, that was available through naturalyarns.co.za that I stacked up on before I left Africa. And I had 2 balls of this, and my plan was to make something for me and then something for my friend who came to visit me in Cape Town, and then we'd be like matchy. So I decided I'd make some monkey socks. I've never made any monkey socks, and I'm northern, so I'm monkeys are a northern monkey, etc. I thought it'd be good, and she's northern, but she's from the wrong side of the Pennines. She's from Hull. It's never dull in Hull. So there's a bit of rivalry because her parents are big Hull Kingston Rovers fans, and obviously I'm from Wigan and the whole rugby league thing. Anyway, I decided that instead of having, remember those Forever Friends necklaces you used to get when you were young, and it was like for you and your best mate, and like it was 2 halves of a heart or whatever you, and it's like, best friends forever type thing, and then they fit together and, your best pals. Well, I think we're a little bit old for that. So what I thought we weren't old enough for was matching socks. So I was going to knit a pair for her in the Cape Town colourway and a pair for me in the Cape Town colourway, and they would be like our matchy socks because being northern, she's also slightly tight, so she doesn't turn the heating on very high. She just like buries herself under piles and piles of blankets and things, and she's always wearing really big fluffy socks. So I thought she'll like these because they'll be really nice and warm. But now she lives in the block and they never turn the heating on either, so she'll be freezing. So it was all going really well. The pattern is very easy to memorise. It comes out very nicely. It lends itself quite well to variegated yarn. But I originally cast on the large size, and it was enormous. There'd have been like 80s leg warmers on her. It was just massive. So I had to rip it all out and start again, which again is not helping with the funk, because whenever I have to rip anything out, I automatically get aggravated with it and throw it to one side like a petulant child. So I then cast on the small size, and I was a bit worried that the small size was going to be too small because she's a size 6, I'm a size 5. And I thought, I've paid for this pattern. I didn't just get the cheapy free one out of Knitty. I paid for the pattern for the extra sizing, and it comes in small or large, and I want something in the middle. I want medium. So I was a bit aggravated really that there was only a small or a large. There was no just medium size, because I don't know whether the small's going to be a little bit tweet. The pattern, when it's knitted up, the fabric is very stretchy. But yeah, I don't know. So I'm still kind of plodding my way through that one. I'm on the first sock. It was a birthday present for her. Her birthday was in April. So that's not happening, is it? Because she's coming to visit in about 2 weeks, and I've got another gift that I've got to finish by then. But I will see how they go. What I might do on the next one is just be a bit of a bandit and change from DPNs to magic loop and see if it's any quicker. But I don't think it will be, because the pattern repeats. It's very it lends itself very well to being on 3 needles. So we shall see. And then there's another sock project that's just hibernating, which was the Kebner Kaiser socks. Yes, that's right. I've still not even got to turning the heel on those. So let's just ignore that. We'll move on. The main project that I really need to finish right now is the Elsabie's Angel Shawl, which is Guardian Angel pattern by Pink Hair Girl. And I've been working on that since the dawn of time. Since people started shearing sheep, I've been working on that pattern. And again, there's nothing wrong with the pattern. The yarn is lovely. It was Nurturing Fibres lace. It was lace singles. So that it's very fine. But I'm knitting on 3.75mm needles, which is bigger, I think, than I probably ought to be knitting in that yarn. But I'm doing it anyway because I'm a rebel. And I'm on the part where you do the cable. You do like a kind of garter stitch body. It's semicircular, and then you do a cable where you're knitting sideways on it, then attaching the cable going round the bottom of the semicircle. And then after that, you've got to pick up all the stitches for the lace edging. Now, this was a present for my friend in Africa that I started last year when I still lived in Africa, in the hope that I would finish it and give it to her before I left, which clearly I haven't. And my husband is actually going back there in a couple of weeks to go and do a handover, and I want him to take it with him so then it's safe, it won't get lost in the post. And I'm about halfway around adding on the cable. And it's not difficult. The instructions in the pattern are really good. There's loads of photos and stuff, so you can see exactly what you're doing. Sally, who wrote the pattern, has helped me out loads already. But it's just... And it's going to sound really petty, but you're knitting 6 stitches, turn. Purl stitches, turn, turn, turn. Cable, turn, turn, turn. And it's just... It's a bit fiddly. It's not actually fiddly. It's not. I'm just got this kind of aggravation that I just want to sit there and just... I guess it probably is stress. I just want to sit there and plough through something and not have to turn the work and not have to do anything. And that's probably why I'm loving those socks rather than any of the other patterns. But I've got to get it done. So I've been making myself every night do a couple of things to get round it. And I think once I get on the next bit, it's the long rows again, I'm going to be fine. It's just these fiddly little... It's not even... This is going to sound really bad. It's only the one... Every 6 you've got to do like a cable. And it's that one row. It's the cable row that's really aggravating me. Yeah. I need to let go, I think. Moving swiftly on. And I have Sammy's Funk Busting tank top, which is the Serdar Smiley Stripes one. It's a pattern out of Hearts and Stripes, which is a book I bought when I first got back into knitting about 4 or 5 years ago, in a big way. And it's dead cute. It's just a little V-neck pullover, little tank top, and it's the colourway is, I think it's Giddy Green it's called. It's greens and blues, and it's variegated, and the yarn is actually quite nice to work with. It's a bamboo and wool blend. It does felt, not felt, it does shrink. Felt is the word, isn't it? It does felt. I know this because my mother-in-law knitted a cardigan for the Beast, and that accidentally got a bit washed, a bit hard by someone doing the washing, not me, and it's a bit tweaked now. So the only thing is with the fabric, when it's knitted up, the Smiley Stripes, the fabric's quite heavy, and it does pull a little bit on the pattern. Do you know, when it just kind of, because it's quite heavy, it pulls the stitches a bit. So I'm not sure how he's going to like that, because it does feel heavy when it's on, and I've knitted it in an age 2 to 3. And he's 17 months, but he's properly diddy. He's really small. So he's probably going to fit in when he's about 5. It's the complete opposite of the Beast. And like I said, I've got to the point, you knit the front in one piece, you knit the back in one piece, you add the shoulders together, pick up all the stitches for the neck, knit that, it's about 8 rows, knit the rib edging as well for the shoulders, and then you just quickly sew down the inside of the seam, sort of down the from the armpit down to the bottom to the waist, and then you're done. And there's probably about 3 hours work left in it, and it's just skimmed there. That's it, because I've got to pick something up now, and it's fiddly, and it's not going to go quick enough. So now I'm annoyed, and I've just left it. I mean, it is summer as well, so he's not going to wear it, not even in Scotland right now, because it's too thick and heavy. But while I was just knitting rows and rows of stockinette stitch or stocking stitch and a bit of rib, I was quite happy. So I think that is definitely a disease. But it is really quick, so it's ideal for kind of stuff that's going for autumn. If you've got any little ones, just to kind of, you can knock something up in a bit of DK. It doesn't take an awful lot of yarn. I think this is only about 3 balls. It's only like 150 grams. You can knock it up, and it's brilliant for just throwing on and off without them needing to have something really big and bulky, because they get quite irritated when you put big bulky jumpers on kids when they can't move. So I'm sure I'll finish it by autumn. But the pattern is good, so we'll see how that goes on. I think in terms of projects, I'm going to leave it there, because a lot of the other stuff that I've got ongoing is just not going. The next thing that I would really like to work on, well, I said just one. I've got about 50 things queued up, but I've ordered some beads. I want to do some beaded knitting, because clearly that is not fiddly or annoying at all, is it? I'm complaining about picking up stitches for a neckband, and then I've decided that I'm going to go and order 700 beads and do a beaded shawl. I don't know what planet I'm on right now, but I want to try a Boo Knits shawl. If you haven't seen them, I will link to her patterns in the show notes, but I'm sure you will have, because she's always got at least one pattern on the first page of the pattern kind of search thing on Ravelry. And she does these shawls that are apparently really easy to knit, but you block them out and they look amazing, really kind of lacy and textural and lovely, and they're full of beads. And I want to do one of her shawls in the Dye for Yarn merino camel that I got from the last Club for the Golden Skein, which was the Tornado over London one, because I think the really rusticy feel of the yarn, the Dye for Yarn base, versus the kind of like shininess of the beads and the kind of ornate, really intricate kind of look of the lace when it's done will be quite, I think it'll just be quite nice. Be a bit of a kind of like, oh wow, where did you get that kind of piece? And I can go, well, I knitted it. Oh, in my case, I'll just be wearing this circular needle around my neck with just the cast on edge and half a row and like 2 or 3 beads sellotape to it, and I'll just be like, yes, I'm halfway through knitting it, but I've got some kind of weird knitting problem. So, so that's what I would like to do. I think the pattern I've got lined up is Fragile Heart, but again, that could change as well. And I ordered some Mizuki beads, the triangular beads. They're quite big actually, which were the recommended beads to go with the pattern. When I start that, I will let you know how I think it's going on, but that is my kind of aspirational pattern next, once I've cleared down some of these whips, I think. Anyway, we're on 43 minutes, so I think I will quickly skip on to the pattern pick section, which is very short, and then we'll do a quick bit of news. So the pattern pick this episode is not really going to be a pattern pick as such. I have decided to share with you an upcoming book, which it was highlighted to me by one of my listeners, DQ Knits on Ravelry and Twitter, and she sent me this link saying she was updating a list for Amazon wish list, and somehow she came across this, and she's like, this needs to go on your Christmas knitting list. So I was just like, yep, definitely. So yes, this book is called WTF Knits, as in WTF, you know what that stands for. WTF Knits, Weird Adventures in Wool. And on the front cover there is a cat wearing a balaclava that is also a shark. So its little face is sticking out, and then the top of the balaclava has some little eyes and some teeth around the face hole, and it's got a little fin on there as well. And there are obviously several other WTF patterns in there. It's a book by Gabrielle Grillo and Lucy Sweet, and it is going to be released on October the 23rd, 2014. It's available for pre-order now if you would like to have a look at it, and I fully intend, as a podcaster into weird patterns, to email the publisher and see if they'll send me a book to review for you, because I think if you're into that kind of thing, and I suspect if you listen to my podcast you probably are, then I think it's knowledge that you need to have. So Gabrielle Grillo is an author, and she lives in Bordeaux, France, and she likes to knit conventional stuff like scarves and cardigans. She discovered the world of strange knits in 2010 and chose to start a Tumblr about it. Lucy Sweet is a writer and cartoonist who lives in Glasgow, Scotland. She contributes to websites and publications such as The Mirror, Parent Dish, Nick Mom and Glamour. She has written 2 novels. So yeah, they've obviously got together and made WTF Knits. I will link to it in the show notes, and get it on your Amazon wishlist, why not? And like I said, I'll see if I can get them to send me a copy to review. I will shoehorn the next bit in with this as well, in the hope that everyone who listens to the podcast does actually listen to the pattern picks. It's my favourite part. But I have a new podcast for you. It is a video podcast, and especially considering a lot of the people that listen to this podcast do so because of the South African element, I think you'd be really interested to have a look at this one. It's brand new, it's just started, and it is done by Sally Cameron, who is Pink Hair Girl, who's been mentioned several times on the podcast. She's a designer as well. She's a South African lady. She lives over in the Western Cape, and she's just started a video podcast. She's going to be covering all the stuff of what she's knitting and things. She's got a very similar kind of storytelling sort of style to me, but she can also give you the designer's aspect of things because she designs her own knitting patterns, a lot of which are inspired by South Africa, the country, the landscapes, the people she knows there. And she's got a lovely way of telling stories. She's a very, very kind of warm person. She's absolutely lovely. She's helped me out loads with knitting patterns and things before as well, which she doesn't have to do, but she just does it because she's really nice. And I definitely recommend, particularly if you like the South Africa aspect, which is now sadly lacking in my podcast, you can get your Safa fix through there. I will link to her in the show notes. She's on episode 2, and definitely give her a listen because I think you'll really enjoy it. Well, that's all for this time. I hope you have enjoyed catching up with me, and the slightly random and hectic nature of this episode is a little bit out of the ordinary. Not too far out of the ordinary in all honesty, but a little bit. And thank you for indulging me and letting me get all that kind of stuff out of my head and across to you guys. Thank you very, very much for listening. I do appreciate it, and I really appreciate those of you also who take the time to send me messages and things. I really love hearing from people. So if you do feel like you want to send me some random message, don't be frightened. Just ping it across. It'll make my day. Always does. And the podcast really wouldn't be here if nobody listened to it. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you all have a great week, and I hope to be back with you a lot sooner than I have been this time, as things start to calm down over the next few weeks. And have a lovely week. Happy crafting. Speak to you all again soon. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Shiny Bees podcast. Show notes for this episode can be found on the blog at www.shinybees.com. Music used in this episode is by Adam and the Water Boys, and it's I Need a Drink, available via Musical.ly.
It's alright. I feel a need to laugh again with you.